Guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today, I'm reviewing Hellraiser that will be streaming on Hulu. So, Hellraiser is the newest film in this very long franchise. I feel like we haven't had one in a few years now, and this is kind of a reboot. This isn't like a sequel to any of the original films, and it definitely feels like they're trying to put a new coat of paint on this franchise. It does still have a lot of those elements that make the first film kind of a classic. Obviously, you have the Cenobites and the way that they look that comes back into this movie. I think they actually look really good in this one in particular because their costuming and their like visual effects and the way they look is almost all like just kind of just gross looking. It's really bizarre to look at. Obviously in the original films there's like a lot of leather and it's very of its time. This one feels far more organic and just really creepy in general. In particular, Jamie Clayton, who plays Pinhead in this one, I think she did a really good job of playing this kind of iconic character but giving her own like personal take on it. You still get that kind of stoic, ominous, just creepy character from this one. I think this movie excels in a way like a lot of the other movies in the Hellraiser franchise work because it really is about the atmosphere, about the creepy characters, about the unsettling nature of everything, kind of the really visceral and grotesque way things are done, the torture. It has all those elements, but I have to say this one, I don't know, it just doesn't hit as much as the first one for me. I'm not a humongous fan of this franchise in general. I do really like the first movie, and I feel like after that it kind of just fell off for me. But I do think that it has some of those elements that make the first one great. It's a little slow. It doesn't have maybe the intensity of some of the other films, and it's a little more polished, whether that's a good or a bad thing. Odessa Zion, who plays Riley, who's the main character in the movie, I think she does a pretty solid job because she has to play someone who has a lot of their own personal demons that they're fighting back against. I feel like that's kind of a common thread in this franchise, and you're seeing her really try to come into herself and try to defeat kind of her inner demons while fighting these real life demons at the same time. So I think that works really well. She's someone who's obviously very troubled, and seeing that character struggle throughout this film and kind of try to rise up, I think she did a pretty solid job in doing that. One thing I will say is this movie is just around 2 hours long, and it takes a good while to get going. It probably does take almost an hour for this movie to really get into full swing, because a lot of it is kind of setting up the lore of this universe, because like I said, it's like a true like kind of reboot. You need to reintroduce the characters, you reintroduce kind of the stakes, how everything works with the puzzle box, how everything works with all the different characters coming in and out of the dimension. So you really need to set that up for about an hour. So if you're someone who is a huge fan of this franchise, maybe you wouldn't need that much setup. But I do think once it starts going, it works really well. You have the really intensity that you expect from these movies. You have the really graphic nature. There's even like some really messed up stuff that happens in the third act of the movie. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers, but there's stuff with people kind of just getting ripped apart and just like things inside of them and these gears, like everything you expect from this franchise. So if you're into that and that's what you really expect out of it, you will be satisfied at least with the third act of the film. There is a plot twist that happens, and I do think it's interesting. It's not 100% necessary, and it feels kind of thrown in there. But, you know, it was always nice to break it up a little bit. Otherwise, the story would be pretty basic on its face. It's very similar to what we've seen in the past. But I do think the twist adds a little something to it, a little more emotional stakes to it, and kind of gives you a more satisfying ending in a way. So if I were to rate Hellraiser 2022, I would give it a 7 out of 10. It's pretty solid. It does a lot that it needs to do for this franchise. It gives it a fresh coat of paint. It doesn't reinvent the wheel. But I do think it'll satisfy most people that are a fan of this franchise. Maybe some newcomers will be able to get kind of brought into it because it does do a lot of that world building and that setting up that lore, and it really does have that just really bizarre nature that Clive Barker has created in the past. So if you check out Hellraiser, let me know what you think about it. How do you feel about it compared to the other films? And I'm really interested to see people that are big fans of the franchise, how this resonates with them, because like me, I'm not really that. I probably haven't watched the first one in 10 to 15 years. It really was kind of like a reintroduction for me. So I'd be interested to see how that compares with people that are diehard fans to like new fans, how people fall when it comes to that. So again, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.